The Russian version of Spectra was produced only with a 1.6-liter gasoline engine with a capacity of 101.5 horsepower and is designed for 95th gasoline. Only the American version is more powerful, 1.8L, 126 horsepower, but only with an automatic. According to the dealer's regulations, maintenance is carried out at intervals of every 15,000 kilometers, with a mandatory change of engine oil and filter. Every 45,000 kilometers we change the timing belt, every 30,000 kilometers, spark plugs. The engine is generally reliable, Japanese roots are felt. Single incidents and breakdowns happen to the owners of new cars on runs up to 10,000 kilometers, but this is more a consequence of the assembly than a design flaw. One has only to pay attention to the condition of the timing belt and change it in advance. A broken belt leads to bending of the valves, and there are 16 of them, 4 per cylinder. A new engine can be found for 70,000 rubles, but this information is more for reference. It is unlikely that you will ever have to deal with this. According to the reviews of the owners, on 99 out of 100 cars, a tapping, rattling, is heard during a cold start, which disappears with the engine warming up and no longer manifests itself. In most cases, the use of synthetic oil and periodic monitoring of its level, inspection of the engine for lubricant leakage helps. If the engine suddenly starts to work unevenly, walk in speed and then recover, then suddenly, Detroit, do not rush to order a new one. Such cases are just not uncommon on runs closer to 90 to 100,000 kilometers. The spark on one of the cylinders, or rather, the ignition coil, is to blame for this. Here one coil goes to 2 cylinders. But what this engine paired with the gearbox lacks is dynamics. And if a bunch with a manual transmission allows you to accelerate the car to 100 km/h in 12.6s, which is close to the level of most budget foreign cars, then with automatic transmission the car will reach this milestone in 16 seconds. It is already possible to compete here only with the bus. Transmission. There are certain questions about the reliability of the automatic transmission, factory index F4AELK. On the one hand, the box also has Japanese roots, but is somewhat modified in the direction of simplification. On the other hand, evil tongues claim that the assembly is Chinese, although it was delivered to the factory from Korea. According to the Kia regulations, the automatic transmission on the Spectra is considered maintenance-free. The dealer only checks the oil level for maintenance. But we know that in our conditions it is better to monitor the quality of the oil in the machine and change it if necessary. First of all, you need to pay attention to oil smudges. An insufficient level can cause overheating and noise in the box and, as a result, leads to the destruction of the clutch mechanisms and bearings. Overheating can be identified by the characteristic black color of the oil with the burning smell. It can be a honey spoon that dealers and workshops have already got their hands on repairing these boxes. The restored automatic transmission is estimated by sellers along with the replacement at 30 to 40,000 rubles. The smoothness of the automatic transmission corresponds to the technological age of its development. There are frequent jerks when switching from first to second gear, solenoid valve stick, and regassing when switching from third to fourth gear, automatic, 4-speed. The latter is treated by replacing the firmware in the electronic control unit. A manual box, 5 steps, is devoid of these shortcomings, but the owners have complaints about the clarity of gear shifting and the long strokes of the gear shift lever. By 50,000 kilometers, oil may begin to leak through the O-ring of the gear selection rod. The clutch disc dies, on average, to 70,000 kilometers. Suspension. The classic scheme: independent McPherson strut front, independent rear, multi-link, with shock absorber struts and a transverse stabilizer. She does not cause any particular complaints. Ball bearings hold up to 130 to 150,000 kilometers and make themselves felt with a knock due to the presence of play. On the recommendation of the manufacturer, the ball joint changes in assembly with the lever. However, those who want to save money can order only the support itself in the store. The suspension is soft and comfortable. Some car owners prefer stiffer and put non-original springs and shock absorbers. The native suspension is prone to breakdown, but if the ride is too soft and the car falls in corners, then this is a reason to evaluate the working condition of the shock absorbers. If the car starts to float on a straight course, look at the stabilizer bushings. By 90 to 100,000 kilometers, wheel bearings begin to buzz in almost all cars of the model. They change in assembly with the hub. In the presence of a garage and free time, craftsmen knock out old bearings and hammer in new ones. The front brakes are disc. The the rear is more often drum, although versions with ABS also have discs at the rear. The pad resource is standard, 30 to 40,000 kilometers for disc and up to 100,000 kilometers for drum. There are no complaints about the operation of the brake system. It provides adequate and predictable deceleration. The disadvantages of the suspension include extremely low ground clearance, 154 centimeters, and even less with installed engine protection and a full load. Notice the long front overhang. The long hood of the sedan, together with the small ground clearance, sharply reduces the geometric cross-country ability of the car. It is necessary to park muzzle to the curb to storm the railway tracks and ramps with a margin. Body and interior. The factory anti-corrosion treatment of the Spectra body included a 4-fold cataphoresis bath, on both sides, colloquially galvanized. The factory warranty against through wormholes was 100,000 kilometers. Therefore, you will not find frankly rusty specimens, of course, if the car has not been attached to an obstacle before. The iron of the body does not have excessive thickness, so it does not like it when any significant effort is applied to it. Softer, even softer. Most of the complaints from car owners are caused by the soundproofing of the cabin. The engine is especially annoyed at high speeds, when it becomes uncomfortable to communicate. The basic configuration already has a central lock, all power windows, a full-size spare tire, a folding rear sofa, 60/40 ratio, power steering, 2 frontal airbags. Spectra was supplied in 5 trim levels. All versions, except the base one, have air conditioning, and the automatic transmission was available only in the top 2 versions, Premium and Lux. Trunk volume of 410 liters is quite good for a compact sedan, and it can be increased by folding the back of the rear sofa. There are cases when access to useful liters may not be possible due to a stuck trunk lock or a loose remote opening cable from the passenger compartment. This is more of an embarrassment than a malfunction, and after adjustment the problem disappears. There are no complaints about the cabin. Simple and angry. Inexpensive plastic with a budget rack. The layout of the seats allows you to comfortably accommodate a fairly large passenger in any row. True, not all drivers can find a good driving position for themselves, despite the vertical adjustment of the steering column. In the course are experiments with the inclination of the basic installation of the driver's seat through spacers. Electrician does not cause serious claims. As we wrote above, over time, it may be necessary to replace the ignition coils. Sometimes owners complain about the insufficient luminous flux of the dipped headlights. In the first 1,000 runs, there were cases of horn failure.